Hey everybody, P. Turner, executive producer and host of your Break It Down show. Waiting on Cliff to come in, so I thought I would just check in with you all and see how you all are doing and kind of update you on some show stuff I think you'll find interesting as we all attempt to improve. So one of the things we did recently was we moved over to the video side. I'm still in the learning curve, and it's pretty steep on how to run video effectively to improve the quality of the video, to improve get the quality of the audio back to where it was, and then also improve it. As you run a show, you have all these variables you have to account for, and when you change the basic mechanics of the show, one of the reasons why I resisted doing video is you can only control so much. And like Wi-Fi, what do? If Wi-Fi is bad that day or whatever, like we had to cancel TJ because of the Santa Ana's were let's call it heavy storm to hurricane strength winds out in Southern California. And that makes all the towers do this. It was really hard to get a reliable signal. So I had to, well, there's a thousand forms of that experience that happen in terms of constructing Wi-Fi. And at the house here, yeah, but still, you have elsewhere. Yes. So you're like, oh, okay, how do I manage that? Video quality, restart the router, all of a sudden there's like these 10 steps that, some of it, and we try to do it, but the challenge is that it's sound. I have, yeah, wear earbuds. If you're going to be a guest, wear earbuds or headphones, like I'm doing right now, because the opportunity to happen. Echo doesn't always happen. And here's the other thing about it. You can ask the guest, say, why do you show all the time? Yeah, you're not going to hear it. I don't. More importantly, you all. I don't want to. So you got to try to figure out how to control that. That's like, I don't want to do this. So you have to say, it really does ensure better quality. Sometimes they can lie. And you have to get it right. So that's the thing that happens. Another thing is if they're, well, like here, I have this microphone right now because StreamYard is capable. They'll tell me that you start my job. Well, that's nice, but I don't really mind not being able to engage my problem. This is simple. And I'm like your text. And then when that doesn't work, then what's the thing? So we can sort of force long audio. I'm working on solution and service. I don't want to lie. Then scrap all that stuff. We want to try to buy the other solution, and it's difficult about anyhow. So I've been working on a lot of these problems, and the reason why I bring all this up is because there are some significant problems. So if you're new to the show, hang in there. And if you're old to the show, and I do it. I know you're out there listening, but also not fast. So we're going to get back to that higher quality. At least I'm doing my camera. You're on a limited budget for a small team. There's just some things that they can be on. Joe Rogan has those. I'll check staff. My time to it's different setup. Small independent show. To do well. We fight well above our weight. I've got to continue to pull us up this mountain and get us up. I saw numbers here. I would say that they get to prepare from insight how they measure it. A lot of stuff. Like none of these sites have been different providers. None of them do that. So they just kept this. And even this. Yeah. They had us which is I'll take it. I mean, if there's 1.5 million shows out, I think that. But no, I am not in your house. There you go, Keith. It's a center pole bell tent. We left. and that's fine. We'll I'm on the set up here. This is me being the assistant producer, aka host, aka executive producer. Cliff, it's Pete. I don't see you in the studio. I hear you. I believe you. I don't see you. I can't help. There you are. You just popped in just now. Here we go. I'm hanging up.
All right, got you.
All right. There's Cliff right there. Hey, Cliff, how are you?
Very good, Pete. How are you today?
Great. I've just been railing about sound, and technology is so wonderful.
Yes,
when it works. And it is so exasperating because I can't hear an outbound version of my show. I can only hear what I can hear in the tent, and so.
Really?
I think he says, "Hey, your sound is jacked." I have no idea how it's jacked. Everything's plugged in. You know, all the cables are new, and then you come on, and your sound is super booming and loud. It's so. And then like this mic here, it never turns on. Like sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, and I can't get this program. So I've just been hollering about technology and how I'm always battling trying to keep the standard high. You know. Well, listen, let's start. Why don't you say these words for me? Hey, this is Cliff Oxford, and you're watching the Break It Down Show.
Hey, this is Cliff Oxford, and you're watching Break It Down Show.
That's right. Break It Down Show coming at you with Cliff. Cliff is an entrepreneur. He started a couple of companies. He's sold companies, so he's really good at that. But most importantly, he's written 3 books, and his latest book is out. And Cliff, one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on is because you have this ability to exist in different worlds, and that's something that I did as a spy in Afghanistan and Iraq. I could go out into the villages, the different villages. They're all different little realities,
right,
and experience them and bring that reality back to the military and State Department reality. And initially they'll reject that reality that you bring. But the reality is it's still their reality, and you still have to try to get these things to recognize one another, so you have a chance of understanding, big picture items or working together and that kind of thing. And so your book, Redneck Reverie, the Rationale for the Trump Phenomena, is exactly one of these kind of things that I like to study, because regardless of who you want to win or which way you lean politically, these are important conversations. It doesn't matter who wins president,
right,
or who runs Congress, if we are dicks to one another, because we don't understand one another. How did I do? Did I get it right?
You got it really right, actually, because the book is not a pro-Trump book or anti-Trump book. It is really about understanding what created Trump and understanding the people who voted for him and why. And the book basically answered the question, why did just in this last election did 73 million people vote for him, including 1 million more than the previous election? Although that equaled 47% of the vote, still pretty darn good. So the book looks at understanding the question the media always asks: how can these people vote for him? And it gave a 45-year history why.
Yeah, interesting. I would even say he is the best person ever at getting the vote out, because I think a lot of people simply voted against. I don't think many people voted for Joe Biden. They just voted to have Donald Trump lose. And so you've got a lot of people motivated to get to like we always say, we need more votes. And, why isn't our voter engagement higher? Well, here you go. we got it higher. What's the cost?
Which actually gives Biden a little bit of an advantage because the bar is so low. Nobody voted for him per se, so his bar is really low. And I think I would rather start off with a really low bar than being thought of as the next Jack Kennedy. With a high bar. I would take the low bar. I would take the low bar of Biden. You may surprise me.
So let's talk a little bit about the premise of your book, because what you're comparing and contrasting in the very broad is the rural and the urban. Like what do these coastal elites want, and what do these damn evangelicals want? If we're going to use our unfair terms, that's sort of it. And you've lived in both tribes. What is? Can you explain to us each tribe individually as best as you can?
Yes. As I say in the book, the thing the Democrats don't understand about rural people is that they basically want a job and to be left alone. They don't want to be involved in the PTA. And I in this book, I say there's enough blame to go around for the 45-year history. And one of them is that these people are extremely apolitical. In a democratic society, that's dangerous, to be extremely apolitical. And so they want a job and they want to be left alone. And they had a social pact with FDR, vote for Democrat and we'll keep you a job, but just vote for a Democrat, even if it's a yellow dog. That's where the yellow dog Democrat came from. And then that was the Democratic pact until we go in this book, until the PATCO, they fired the air traffic controllers. Then they did NAFTA, and then the opioids Inc. And basically, these people were sold out. They were sold out for an economic coup. So to answer your question, they want to be left alone, and this goes into why they voted for Trump, is that they were really screwed over. The urban, the elites are not as bad as we may think. That's not necessarily a bad word. Elites want to make a difference. They want money, they want power, but many of them are very good people. They want to make a difference in society. So that's the big difference. One wants to be left alone, and one wants to make a difference.
Yeah, I can understand that. One of the things I know from my time is if I'm going to use deployment, and I think it's a very good proxy for what we're talking about here. The elites are the Americans that come into a place like Afghanistan and presume to improve the condition of Afghans or Iraqis without ever understanding it or bothering to understand it. I mean, I saw us come in with we're going to tell farmers how to farm, and we've got hundreds of years of history of trying to do this and getting it wrong. We refuse to learn these lessons. And so I go out and I'm talking to these locals, and they're like, I know how to farm. Yeah, but the idea is we're going to help you get more crops, so you hire people to bring in. And they'll say straight in my face, there is no crop that is so big that I cannot bring it in myself. If I need help, I go to my cousin, and I will bring the crop in. I will never hire anybody else. I will never do that. And I will bring in, I will make the crop big. What I need from you guys is not more trees, not drip irrigation. I need feed and seed. You want to give me something? And what farmer anywhere ever doesn't say feed and seed? Give me feed and seed, and I will make money. You want to help me? Help me there. Do we do that? No.
Yeah. Well,
and I just want to make this last point. Yeah. So the redneck, so the farmer, it's just leave me the hell alone. You just make my life harder.
They give me, and I want a job. They do want. That's what they really wanted. That's what gave them hope. And when they didn't have that job, hopelessness came in. And, it went from country sunshine to community squalor. The conditions are in many cases, Pete, worse than what you saw in Afghanistan. And I'm sure it is really, really bad. And it's the same thing that happens to inner cities. As much as they're different, they're also alike, because human beings are alike. When there's hopelessness, then you get decay. And that's basically what happened. But the Democrats don't. They remind me they don't know how to treat these folks, because the Democrats come in and say, you know, we want to this program be part of this revolution, and they don't want to be part of any program or revolution. They just want, you want to help me, give me a job.
I understand. I feel like I understand rural folks better than I understand, the elites. And I hate using the term evangelicals and coastal elites, because I think it's so unfair to both parties.
Yeah, sure.
Because I mean, it's like, do you even know what an evangelical is? Why are they bad people? And then coastal elites, what does that even mean? Someone who's got a degree and wants to live in New York City doesn't make them a bad person. There's conservative people among that set. There's people that like to race cars, So I hate to use those terms, but they do a good job of mentally categorizing us. People that want a job, right, and want to be left alone, will look at their community and say they live in squalor, and they'll, and maybe they want some specific help, but Southern Alabama, there may not be a sidewalk for 5 miles along the road. They don't want to pay for a sidewalk. They don't want a sidewalk. They'll just walk on the damn road. And then that doesn't make sense to folks from the city, where a sidewalk equals like a form of transportation. These guys are like that. So they're so different. They're not at all, they're not even akin, right? How do we balance that? Like, I'm desperate to go right along the border of US and Mexico and go interview people who actually live there and understand their condition, because I know that nobody reliably in New York understands it. We'll project it and we'll assign something. Right. And then the other is true, right? Like, you live on the border way out in the middle of Durango County or wherever it is. You have no idea what it takes to survive on a low income in a city, So how do you swirl these things? Do we even need to swirl them together? We're
looking at this, and I just partnered with Kimberly Jones, who did that viral video that got over 2 million views. I don't know if you've seen it. It was on. She did a video on why the game was rigged against African Americans, and she compared it to a game of Monopoly. But never. She's from the urban, and we're doing this project together called From Holler to Hood.
Yeah,
and Holler is like the holler Loretta Lynn lived in, down in
right.
And the hood, of course, is the inner city. And here is the thing: they never want, and I say they, the campaign funders would never want the holler and hood to start working together. Right. It's to their advantage to keep them separate and keep them divided.
Okay.
And, when you split it between two parties, you can't get an overwhelming majority. So the real thing is if those two can holler to hood, because they do have some of the same needs, education, healthcare, and but there's such political divide between the two, it's hard to do that. So the replacement of the Trump phenomenon will be the leader who can bring the holler and hood together. And that's going to be a major transformation in the United States.
If you were going to bring the holler and the hood together, whether you're talking about a democracy or a republic, I mean, the power is with the people, right?
Right.
That's terrifying to the senatorial class.
Oh, yes. The political class, that is the worst case scenario for them, to the political class. But you got to run two different marketing. Trump was brilliant in not running a political campaign. He ran a marketing campaign, and he attracted some of the most unlikely people that would support him would be the people in the holler. But marketing, he understands marketing. He's very good at it. So the leader that can combine the two will be, the next major transformation in the United States. But the political class does not want that. They want it divided, very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Donald Trump's also done something else pretty remarkable. He climbed in in a lot of ethnographic categories, especially amongst people of color. There is something to, I guess you could say, to Trumpism, right? I mean, because look, the person is pretty vile, and I'm actually not for Biden or Trump. I don't think either one of them is the answer. But I'll be damned if he didn't go out and make an effort to, if not placate and to pander. He started changing things, prison reform, funding historically Black colleges and universities. There's a lot of, if you remove him from it, and if we're able to, and that's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
If we look at his accomplishments, there's a lot of good things where we're like, wow, yeah, I think we all agree that that's good.
And I think that's ultimately, despite his conduct, he got 73 million votes. You know, they were expecting him to get 40 or 50 million. And, you know, they're kind of shocked. And there are people scared that he got 73 million votes. And he knows. So, yeah, I agree with you. And I think some of that was just, hey, you know what? He did do some things that reached across party lines, that didn't honor the political boundaries.
Yeah.
And that's really another big problem they had with him. And I agree with you. I'm not here taking up for Donald Trump. I'm just trying to state the facts. He broke some political boundaries, and that's why I called it a phenomenon. You know, and in the title of the book, the rationale. I didn't say the right reason or all of that. I said the rationale of the Trump phenomenon.
Right.
But it is a phenomenon.
What do we do with someone who's, I mean, look, we want someone, I think as a nation, we want someone who's anti-establishment. I mean, if you run hard, not just on reform, but like on F those guys, what have they done for you? You know, like, I think here's a good example. And again, I have to say these things all the time. We have to caveat so much because Donald Trump is such a problem. But when Ice Cube says, I have a plan for Black America, and I'm not interested in people of color. I'm talking specifically about Black America. Simultaneously, before they ever interact with each other in terms of organization, you know, Donald Trump's like, next administration. This is a plank in his platform. Who knows if he would have accomplished it or not, but he runs on, I'm going to invest specifically in Black businesses, small entrepreneur thing. We're going to give you ways to get up and get off your feet and own your own business. I mean, that's remarkable. And then Ice Cube goes to the two campaigns and says, I want to talk about your plan and I want to have an audience. The Trump campaign says, absolutely, let's go. And they adjust their plan. Good, bad, quality, whatever, right? They have the meeting. The Biden campaign says, we're not in charge yet. If I'm anywhere near the Biden campaign, I'm like, how in the hell do you turn away Ice Cube and say, we'll see what happens later, especially because we know the Democratic Party has this problem where it's like, you talk to me during the election and then you don't talk to me after. I mean, that is absolutely a belief by a lot of people. So when you look at like the urban folks, at some point, they're going to be like, F you. I'm at least, this guy's saying he's going to do it and he's meeting with us. He's saying he's going to fund these things. I'm going to do that. I'm not just going to vote party line because I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. It's exasperating, you know, because I want to see people do well too. And if we're going to run on something, I don't care who the person is. I don't care how nice they are, but if people need help, let's get them the help that they need to get up on their feet and have their own business.
Yeah. You know, for instance, Kimberly Jones and other Black leaders, young leaders that I talked with, they were publicly for Biden and they probably voted for Biden.
Okay.
But they would say on the side, I have no problem if Trump's elected, because with Trump, I can go sit down with him and he will make a decision. Yeah. I can depend on him to make a good decision or a bad decision. Whereas, you know, you get into the Democrats and it's going to be you're going back into political boundaries.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot to be said for it. I think Trump played around with some dog whistles a little too much, though. And I think, you know, look at what he did on in Charlottesville was not appropriate. So he was close to being something really, really good, and the political system needed. But at the end of the day, Pete, I still think he was more concerned about what Rosie O'Donnell thought than what the French Prime Minister thought.
And I totally agree with you there.
And that we cannot explain.
Yeah.
That one we cannot explain.
And I wish he would shut up. Like, you made your point. Now shut up, or make a different point. He's so talk point.
The first debate probably cost him the election, because you got to look at this. Even in a pandemic that killed tragically over, what is it now, 250,000 people.
Yeah.
He got 73 million votes. Without the pandemic, the estimates are he would have won in a landslide.
Yeah. Yeah.
90
he was going to crush.
So I think Trump has scared them. I think he showed them a lot about politics that they were wrong on. And that is, you can criticize the media.
Yeah.
You can say what you want. And he changed the rules of politics. There's just no doubt about that. And I think without the pandemic, you're looking at 90 million votes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, how many incumbent presidents with a strong economy, and he's right. We were going in a very good direction. Would we have kept it? I don't know. Was it the best economy ever? I don't think so. We're borrowing too much money still, but yeah, you're right. We were going in a way that made a lot of sense. And, one of the things I admire about who he was and the people that were willing to work with him is it took a lot of courage, because, Kim Kardashian talked about it in her interview with Dave Letterman. People are like, don't you dare go into that office to go work with him. Like, no, I have to. There's people in prison that shouldn't be there. We need prison reform now, not with the right candidate. And so the people that were compelled to go and stand in front of him, I'll be damned if they didn't, on whole, make a difference. I mean, like, he moved the needle on Native American issues, the loopholes federally and tribally to deal with human trafficking. And again, I have to say this out loud. I'm not for President Trump, but we have to look at these things. And then, will these lessons hold? I mean, his foreign policy is definitely better than the last two presidents, and probably the last three presidents, in terms of creating peace. I mean, they all run on peace in the Mideast, but he's the one guy the Saudis and the Israelis are meeting right now in real time. And
the media totally put that under the rug. They just were not going to give him credit.
It's embarrassing. Yeah.
But here is what Trump did on foreign policy that was where we really benefited, is that you take North Korea, the State Department there would say the president can't talk to that president of North Korea.
Right.
Well, a lot of that was all lobbied by the Pentagon complex because they wanted to keep the military there. And there's big bucks in keeping, 30,000 troops there.
Oh, yeah.
So the way the lobby blocked it was come up with this rule. The president can't talk with the other president.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so silly. And Trump came in and said, you're crazy. I will talk to him if I want to. Yeah. And now, as I say that, we had to balance it out, because as smart as that was, Trump was just as unsmart on the on the climate accords. I don't know why his daughter could never get him on board with climate change.
Yeah.
He did some stupid things with that, but he did some good. He did some in foreign policy. He basically told the State Department, get out of my way.
Well, and again, F Donald Trump. He's a jerk every time. Because here's the thing is, if you don't account for this constantly, people lose their damn minds. We have to have a hard conversation about these things.
Yes.
But the State Department is straight up garbage. I mean, I've worked with these people. They are insulting. They're arrogant. They're too damn smart for their own damn good. Like, you and I both know, if we went into the holler with a State Department person, they would get way more things wrong than right, and then leave thinking those people loved me.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with the State Department. So they have these beliefs and everything else. And I think you're right. We have done better on the environment, like our carbon emissions are going down. And really the big elephant and the big ape in the room is that China and India are exploding in terms of middle class, and they're going to produce so much more carbon.
That's true. That's the truth on this. Now, here's what I got. One quick one for you.
Yeah, please.
Where it does, the Trump did an executive order and changed the rules on the Clean Water Act of 1973 and clean air. Well, you go, well, what does that amount to? Where I grew up in the Okefenokee Swamp, they reclassified the Okefenokee Swamp as not a wetland and said this is not protected by the wetlands. And you know what? Twin Pines Minerals have applied for a permit to come in and to mine titanium in the swamp. Well, you shouldn't be going. I mean, a swamp is a natural wonder. You shouldn't be mining titanium there.
Right.
But this is the other side of the coin, where maybe Trump didn't look at he would not be studious enough to understand these environmental policies, and so they would get things past him like that.
Yeah.
So he did some things that were good, and he did some things that were just crazy, and I think the first debate really cost him because that was an embarrassment up on stage. That's not. These suburban women said, this is not going to be my president.
A lot to be said for that. I mean, the first debate was hard to listen to, and they managed to both lose that debate.
Well, if you looked at it, Biden was actually more vindictive than Trump was. Trump was louder, but Biden called him a clown, called him a liar. But Trump got sent to the corner for it. You know what I mean? It's like two kids get caught. I was always the kid that got sent in the corner when two of us were talking in class.
Yeah.
And Trump got sent to the corner.
Which is completely true. And I thought I would bring this up too, because I think it's important that we look at these aspects of what we're talking about here. The the media, was wholly in it for Joe Biden. No hard questions. Wouldn't look into this very viable problem he's got in Ukraine, China, Russia. We chased the president around for years of his presidency. We threw all these Hail Mary passes to get him out of office. And we didn't, as a media, and I'm saying we because I'm in the media, we didn't do our due diligence there. Just saying, oh, it's been dismissed. Has it? Why is there a laptop with emails? And these emails go to other laptops where, there's a lot of cooperation here.
Well, you're in the media, and you know what Trump said to the media is, you don't matter anymore. With social media, I don't need you. And that took all their power away from them. Sure, they're going to come after Trump with that.
Yeah.
When he basically said these people don't matter anymore. Newspapers don't matter.
Yeah. And again, he was such a contrarian on so many things, like going after the media. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to placate them.
Oh my God. That was just unheard of.
Yeah.
You're probably not old enough, but I am old enough to remember how they beat up Jimmy Carter, and he just took the licking like Southern boys were taught to do.
Yeah.
Trump was from Brooklyn or no, Queens. He's from Queens. So he did. So I think he taught people about, he reinvented politics almost, that you can take on the media.
I don't think you can follow him, though. I think you can take some aspects of what he did. Of the four people that were running for vice president, Mike Pence is the most calm, sane, and probably the guy that probably would do the best job in terms of being an ABC 1, 2, 3, policy person. But Donald Trump, you can't follow his lead. He went after, and it turns into money going against him. He went after this corporate thing. Every time he ran, again, this is not a defense of Donald Trump. We're just trying to understand this thing. He went out, he's like, I didn't take money. Look at these pictures when I'm standing next to Hillary Clinton. She liked me then when I had money. Joe Biden raises hundreds of millions of dollars. Who do you think's going to get the favors first? So Donald Trump goes after the drug industry. He goes after these things, and they hit back hard because, corporate interests matter.
Nobody should think they're going to take on the Trump phenomenon after Trump because, talking about being in two worlds, the other world I'm in is business. I help people buy and sell their companies, and I bought and sold my companies. What is the one company you do not want to buy? You never want to buy one type of company. I have seen it 150 times be a total failure.
Yeah.
There's one type of company you never want to buy, and it's a personality-driven company that's driven by a single personality versus systems. So, if, when you buy a personality-driven company, that will dry up faster than you can ever imagine. And Trump is a personality-driven political machine.
Yeah.
And there's nobody going to get that coalition, unless you might have some ideas on that. But based on personality-driven marketing, I have never seen it in business be successful with another person.
Yeah, because that personality dries up, and then the copy is never the same. And the entire it's like this this thing we have with presidents governing by executive fiat. It's not good for the country. It's not how we're designed. It's hard to check and balance because the Supreme Court's already held a number of times for executive orders, and we don't like kings. And so it creates these problems where the president has too much power. But again, if you try to tear this thing down like Donald Trump did in a lot of ways, everybody goes against you and you get one term. And it's boy, is it a fight. The tribal fight is really rough right now.
Yeah, and I think it's going, it used to be the president would have a couple of years afterwards, to get stuff done. Going back to really, I guess it really started maybe with Obama or Bush. They don't even give them, now they come in and the other side goes, we're going to kill everything they do from day one.
Right.
Which is not healthy for a democracy when you have that type of tribal. That's not the way the system, to use your words, was built. It was built on compromise. And it's, but I'm doing an update to the book right now. It's going to be on who will take on the Trump phenomenon. Is that coalition transferable? Right. I kind of gave away the prize here already by saying the analogy with the personality company, but that doesn't mean there can't be another personality that creates a whole new coalition.
Yeah.
On the Democratic side, the only person over there that I see that understands mass communications is AOC. Is their name? Yeah, AOC, right?
Yeah. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She's a representative out of New York, right?
Yeah, she understands mass communications. Like her or not, just like you said about Trump. I'm not saying you're going to like her or not. She understands mass communications, and she's probably got some ability to do something on a mass basis. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, they're all in that system that Trump tore up.
Yeah, and let's be honest about all those names you just said, minus Representative Ocasio-Cortez. They're all done. They've got another term. Any one of them could die at any day. They're old enough that, you just don't know when the stroke's going to happen. So whatever impact they're going to have on the system, it's minimal. It's the next group of people. And what I don't see from either side, and I've had representatives on the show, so, I asked this question, like, who on the left, who on the right are you willing to work with? Who's got good ideas that you can reach across the aisles? And I'm telling you, man, they don't want any part of it. You know, they're all trying to kill the other party, which, as you know, is really, really, really bad for all of us when you're trying to tear down an entire party. And I want to make this point because this is an important thing to add to this. Donald Trump took on Democratic positions. He wanted to invest in infrastructure. He wanted to fix, immigration. He's like, I'm going to take on these issues that the right didn't want to do. And the left gave him those positions and came and countered him on it. You know, and it's like, what are we doing? We're just going after the thing instead of trying to support the folks.
Well, where we can look to see how it turns out is a country I spent a good bit of time in teaching at American University of Beirut in Lebanon. Lebanon has the kill the other tribe politics. And by the way, I'm a big believer in Lebanon, beautiful country, wonderful people, but their politics is all about which tribe kills the other one. And that is not the American system. And they, Lebanon's the best people with the worst government in the whole world. So it's not a good place we're going. With social media impacting all of this, it's going to be interesting how they do this. And Biden's going to have probably more problems with AOC and them, or at least as much with them as he does with the right.
I think you're right about that. He's going to have to fight off his party and whatever the Republicans want to do. And again, and this is where I really am. The press have let us down. I'm not sure who's done worse yet. And the Democrats let us down. They could have put forward a candidate. I could vote for Andrew Yang. I can vote for Tulsi Gabbard. But they play this game where they try to find the one person who can probably beat Trump instead of finding the best candidate to do the damn job. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what God you believe in.
Impressive. Tulsi was really impressive.
She's someone you can you can disagree with her and still support her, because she's got character.
She was honest. Say what you want. I think I know this may not be popular, but I thought Bernie was an honest guy. I don't support his positions, but I think he was in it for the right reasons. And I think that's why they're going to give Biden a lot of trouble. Pelosi is just there for the power and the looks and all that.
Yeah.
AOC and Bernie and that group, they want to get some shit done. Excuse my language.
It's okay. You could say shit.
And they want to get it done. So I think they are going to, when they see Biden flinch on the new Green Deal and all that, that could be a big, big blow up for Biden.
Let me ask you as a businessman, when you hear the left, in particular Joe Biden, say, I'm going to raise corporate taxes. We're going to get money out of these corporations. Because here's the thing, I asked my friend Will Riley, who's been on the show a bunch of times. He's a very notable political scientist. And I'm like, how do we get money from the top to get more evenly distributed on the spectrum? Does the government do it? Do we incent, business action? What do we do to reliably do that? And he's like, you don't. You don't. The people who are good with money have the advantage because they can move it offshore. They can hire a better mind to help them solve this problem. As a business owner, if someone comes and says, I'm going to take 15% of your bottom line if you're doing business in this state and in this country, do you just give up and go, I guess I just make 15%? Could you take a 15% hit?
That's a really good question because you got to think about the realities of Washington, D.C. and how it works and the political funding of campaigns. And all of that is done by people who are not paying tax, by the people who can afford not to pay taxes.
Yes.
And I think that's just pie in the sky, especially, I don't mean to criticize Joe Biden because there's things I like.
I do. I think he's a terrible candidate.
But he's baked into a system as a proxy.
Right.
And so, the political class is going to win every one of those battles, no matter what they say. you would never see a law passed that says everybody pays a minimum 10%. There would be a loophole in it.
Right.
If there is, because there's too much money at stake. So, looking down the road, because our system will not allow that right now, that might be a big cause for a big revolution in government that you're ultimately going to see because of social media. I just don't know if it's 20 years or 40 years or 10 years. It's going to happen. The people are going to say, we're not going to take this anymore, because the way the Washington class has it working right now. And look, Trump took some of that on and got whacked. But again, the best thing that happened to Trump and the Republicans might be for Joe Biden to have won, because they're going to see that the status quo. I want to make this one comment. The one thing the media did about Trump, when they complained against Trump, in cases where they rightfully complained about Trump, they always assumed the status quo was wonderful before him. No, the status quo elected him. It was horrible. It's a terrible system. They got rigged right now. And, in the book, in Redneck Reverie, you go to these rural areas, you take their jobs, you make them compete against people living in a cardboard house in China.
Yeah.
You make them poor. Then you finance dollar stores to come in.
Yes.
And you have to pay $2 for 2 ounces of dish detergent. And you eat frozen pizzas. And so you make money off them being poor.
And pump drugs into their community.
And then you pump drugs in their community because the federal government's got a wallet that can pay for Medicaid and Medicare. Uh-huh. So then you say, how can these people vote for Trump?
Yeah.
The question is, why did it take you so long? That's what I ask my family, neighbors, and friends is, guys, and, one quick point, and this is many of them voted for Obama the first time, and I write in the book.
Yeah.
And they all told me, and they said, look, we thought a black guy would understand how we're being treated. And then they said, just another politician. Obama got in office and didn't do that much. So they said, just another politician. So these people they got screwed, and they got screwed maybe 3 to 4 times.
Yeah.
And their grandkids are on opioids right now. So that's the Trump, the Trump saw that, and Trump came in with a marketing campaign and grew, a loyal customer base. No different than In-N-Out. Did you see In-N-Out Burger opened in Colorado, the first store in Colorado? They served 69,000 burgers this weekend in that one store. And the line was 12 hours.
Crazy.
That was the average wait time, not the longest. The average wait time was 12 hours. People still want to be part of something simple and honest.
Yeah. They do, and that's one of the questions I wanted to get into, but you sort of answered it here. Is I'm really critical again of the left, but also the right, but specifically the left, because they really had an opportunity here. You have this horribly flawed candidate, and you had all this time to build a real powerful machine, and they failed. They had people leaving their party because of it. But why would evangelicals, why would they vote for Donald Trump? And I think you just nailed it. We were tired of the drugs. We were tired of the homelessness. We were tired of all these things. And then just the duplicitous, okay, we're going to talk about slavery. And slavery is horrible. And we always have to say that. But we all know this, right? And yet my iPhone is built by Chinese slaves. There's slavery going on with our.
Right. Well, evangelicals I grew up Southern Baptist, hardcore Southern Baptist.
So you're a horrible person then.
Yeah. I grew up, we went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night.
Uh-huh.
And But evangelicals have no problem being hypocritical at all, because God, their belief system is God has redemption.
Right.
And no matter what you do, if you ask God to forgive you, he forgives you. And so they're very, somewhere between redemption and hypocrisy, they operate very fluidly.
Yeah.
So Trump was not a problem to them. Then there was always this admiration among evangelicals about the rich guy in town.
Yeah.
So Trump was quite ideal for them. That's why he got 92% of their vote this last month.
Yeah. I mean, he did well with them because it wasn't just about their religious beliefs, and yeah, we all know we're hypocrites. That's sort of, that's in the big book, that we're going to, none of us are perfect.
That's right.
And I think if you took any person who voted for him, would they wish he was a better person? I think almost 100% of people would say, yeah, I wish he was. But, who's helped me recently? And you're right about the Obama administration. He got held up by the system. They didn't want him to deliver the change he was talking about. And he wasn't able to build the consensus. We haven't had a consensus building president for a long time. I think President Trump was inching his way there if they ever would have gave it. But, before the pandemic, it seemed like, the wealth gap was shrinking. People on the left were like, we're going to have to do something about this. Let's work. I mean, there was some changes coming. Can those changes, if they were real, can they be brought back by either party? Where because Joe Biden says he wants to, coalesce them, but he can't. There's no way. I mean, do you take Joe Biden's attempts at building consensus seriously? I mean, given his reputation and the experience when he was vice president and the failures, I mean, this guy has not been a very good and successful politician in terms of consensus.
No, and I mean, to be just frank with you, I think Mitch McConnell has no interest in that either, to be fair.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I think Mitch McConnell is not going to give Joe Biden. In fact, in the Senate, it's well known Mitch McConnell outfoxed Biden on everything. He sees Biden as kind of an easy prey.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be zero amount of between on either side.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Like, we don't have that person that's going to be able to get Chuck Schumer or Harry Reid or Nancy Pelosi, these politicians on that side, or Cocaine Mitch, to get these folks to get in the same room and make a decision. I mean, we're still waiting on an aid packet for COVID, and the disease continues to ruin lives and ruin businesses. The secondary costs that aren't just health deaths. We talk about the 250,000 people, but how many people's lives are irrevocably changed or changed for the next 10 years, in part because the government that was supposed to try to put a package together, they couldn't agree on it.
Yeah.
Shame on them.
Yeah. You can just imagine, let's say if Biden is only one term, which I fairly sure
Gotta be.
Yeah, one term. The next battles on both sides, Republican and Democrats, with now social media as a highly effective tool, it's just going to be a dogfight. And then you start looking at Social Security drying up, Medicare drying up, and paying for all these bills that we've run up. It's not a great picture ahead.
You run businesses, you see balance sheets, you understand what happens. At some point, we can't just cut $1 trillion checks. I mean, we have to at some point do that. And there's no president that will survive that level of reorganization. Is it too late? Are we in a bust out mode where we're just let's just spend it, let's see who will buy our debt for as long as possible, and then go crawfish on the whole deal?
Well, it's kind of like climate change. If you look at the science of it, we're too late. And also, if you look at the balance sheet, we're more or less a family out of work on vacation on credit cards right now. And how long can you stay on vacation on credit cards until they cut you off?
Yeah.
And I'm going to give you, people, Roosevelt spent $782 million on the whole New Deal. $2 billion in the day's dollars. He would call his secretary at night, Treasury Secretary, and go, "Did you have to print any money today?" These are people who were serious about governing, right? They were.
Right.
We're spending $2 billion an hour on keeping just the stock market prop, the
Right.
Feds.
Yeah.
So you do the math on that. It will. We know it will bust. Do I think we'll put the pieces back together and yeah, we'll do that. Human beings are survivors, but it's going to bust. I mean, there's no, just a matter of how long can we stay on the credit card on vacation?
Yeah.
I mean, when you're moving decimal points to add 2 trillion more, it's going to be, if we get to the point where we can't print our own money, if the World Bank says you can't print your own money anymore, then you're going to have a cash shortage.
Yeah.
Then you're going to have a war.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's inevitable that we do have a war to sort this out.
Yeah.
Because somebody's going to want to get paid, and we're not going to be able to pay them. And they're going to say, all right, here you go. And it's not, look, I say war, I don't mean a bunch of people in trenches, because that's not how we fight anymore. Right. They're going to come in and they're going to electronically devastate aspects of our existence, whether it's an EMP or a cyber attack or whatever. They're just going to come in and destroy big whole swaths of things, and just people are going to suffer for it, because that's how we fight these days. The atomic bomb is an E-bomb now.
Well, and it's scary and it's tragic. I think the United States, they reported in Florida yesterday 7,000 kids missing from school.
Yeah.
Just in Florida, 7,000 kids in one school district. Here's the deal. And they found most of those kids in hotel rooms where their parents had to move.
Yeah.
And they found a lot of them hungry. And they, that I think we've seen I've always said what we saw in the streets was out there for social justice and equal justice. The root problem of that is people hungry.
Yeah.
And so, I agree with you. There's going to be some type of war to sort all that out. And it's a shame, because I thought American capitalism, our system was a really good system where you had capitalism, you had a safety net, you had a system that said you better, your feet, when it hits the port, better get to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it created this great culture. But I'm reading an interesting book right now was Hoover Right? And Hoover's basic thing with Roosevelt was, if you start this government thing, there's no way to end it.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I mean, and you look at how powerful the military-industrial complex is. They lied to the president to keep people deployed. The State Department supports that because they all work together. The Gulf Coast is desperate for high-paying military jobs and can't imagine doing anything else. I mean, all of these things happen. How many congressmen run on, I would like lower paying jobs in my district, less military? I don't know any congressperson that has a military facility. It's yes, cut my facility. It does. And that's just that industrial complex. We have a craving. This is the government too. The government builds this. That prison industrial complex is because we must imprison Black men. And we don't have the capacity to do it. So we contract it out and we build this system that runs on an entire ethnic group. And then we look down on them for getting arrested and being pissed off at the system. These are big problems that I don't hear anybody talking about. We change our crisis week to week, month to month.
Right.
And here are people in our country that are absolutely being treated unfairly and horribly. and value life differently. And when I've interviewed a lot of folks who lived in the inner city, like you, I get around to do these different groups. And what they reveal to me are the things that I heard in combat zones.
Wow.
Like dream. I can't dream. I'm trying to live tomorrow. I don't know when I'll be attacked. I don't know who I'll be asked to attack. And then my life doesn't matter. Their life doesn't matter. And ultimately, your life doesn't matter. And the most powerful thing I learned in this Prison Chronicles project that I put together, one of these guys said, prison is an extension of my community. And that is not the American way. That is not what we want. Nobody wants that to be anybody's reality. Yes, some people need to go to prison and they need to rehabilitate and they need to get past the age 30 because they're shitheads. But it should never be a norm in someone's community that you will do prison, you will get shot, you will get murdered. Now, any of those three, if not all three of those, happen regularly enough that of course you believe it.
Well, Benjamin Franklin said, you're going to have a republic with capitalism. The capitalists will just buy off the republic. And he was very skeptical. He wrote that this system could work, and it did work for a long time. But the hole in the system was we let our campaigns be funded by people that could buy off policy.
Yeah.
That was the one. If you look at all these problems, it's because somebody's voting for a campaign fundraising check rather than what's just good for the common good.
Yeah. Nothing to argue with there.
All the problems come back to that one.
Both parties have let us down on this. They really have let us down. And they, again, the fact that they can no longer get together tells me that we're going to have to do some real hard sorting out, and people that don't want to run are going to have to roll up their sleeves and get to work and go into Congress. And, it's one thing to say, well, Mitch McConnell won't cooperate. Well, instead of running on, in the first 100 days, I'm going to solve your problems and answer. No, the first 100 days, I'm going to have 200 meals with every member of Congress coming through my door, and I'm going to figure out where the hell we are and how we get things done. I can't tell you what we're going to do yet because we can't do anything because the people in those buildings over there don't want to work together. That's my mission. That's my 100-day mission. And if I haven't done that by 100 days, if I haven't made significant progress, I'll walk out the door. You guys can have the vice president. Who do you want for vice president? You pick it.
You might be the next Trump phenomenon. That's the kind of talk I think it's going to sell.
Yeah.
Somebody just being deadly honest. And because that's what's going to happen. I mean, if you look, term limits was something else we let get past us, that the politicians pulled over our eyes, and they didn't vote for term limits. I mean, if you look at Pelosi and McConnell, I mean, come on, they shouldn't be there right now. They've been there way too long. But
way too long.
But the problem is they've made it so good for themselves.
Yes,
they will stay there in their 80s.
Yeah,
and because that's how comfortable it is there, and so it's going to be very interesting how the American experience will be rechecked.
Mitch McConnell is so comfortable. He invited Representative Ocasio-Cortez to submit the Green New Deal. It's like, and bamboozled the hell out of her and survived that with not even a dent in his armor,
right.
He played her completely and exposed her for what she was, completely unprepared to deal in DC. And that's not in any, I would get had by that. Oh, you're going to vote on my project? I would bite on that too. But I mean, that's how powerful that dude is he can do that to somebody. Everybody knows they have to follow his thing. Everybody voted against it. You know,
McConnell's just smarter than Pelosi. I mean, but I think they're basically cut from the same. They're part of a campaign culture. Now, quick thing on Pelosi, the reason she's going to get reelected is in the early 80s, the Democrats were about to run out of campaign money. In the early 80s. If you were running for Congress as a Democrat, you had no campaign money. But Pelosi's husband was a Wall Street investment banker, and he is the one that made the arrangement for Wall Street to start also funding Democratic campaigns. So she has got that spigot from Wall Street to the Democrats. And that's why they all vote for her, because they don't want that spigot cut off. That's her implied power. If you cut me off, you may lose the Wall Street campaign spigot.
Yeah.
So I think, Pelosi and McConnell are part of the Darth Vaders that made politics such a bribery system that is today. And that was the system they were brought up in.
Yeah, it's also the system that made money speech, and like, how can Michael Bloomberg go give $100 million into Florida to incent votes? How come I get ads for representatives who aren't even in my district? Like, how am I allowed to cut a check for someone who I don't live within 350 miles of, or 3,000 miles of? But these are the things that these long-term Congress people have created. Like, they have a retirement instantly. None of us do. I mean, it's horrible.
They're all just like McConnell and Pelosi, which they said this right here: as long as we keep our job, this nice, wonderful congressional seat, and what we should do with those seats is make it really so unattractive that only the people who go there are people trying to help.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the part we missed in the system, where we didn't make that job like, oh my God, I got to go. Yes, I'll go to Washington for 4 years and do my time. Almost like the military. You were in the military.
Yep.
Almost like you're going off to military.
Yeah.
And you're doing it for country. You know what I mean? You're doing it for duty. They're doing it for grandiose, power hungry. And that's where you've seen that number on the zip codes around the Capitol are like the most highest earning. Disgusting. Isn't that just disgusting?
It is. It's horrible. And shame on both parties for doing that. By the way, Donald Trump ran on term limits, by the way. That was one of his planks. So people that voted against him voted against. If you are for term limits, you had a chance. And also, term limits is easy. Vote your person out. And then this is where you get our duplicity from all of us. So like, whoa, my person's good.
My person's good. That's
you vote your person out.
This gets back to Redneck Reverie, was what you and I just discussed, including the zip codes around the Washington, D.C. Don't ask me how these people could vote for Trump.
Yeah.
Don't ask me that question, Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon and all these guys which I've heard them specifically ask, how can these people vote for Trump? Well, they're benefiting from those zip codes around Washington, D.C. Somebody's paying the price for that down in Blackshear, Georgia right now. Instead of having a $20 an hour job, they got an $8 an hour job.
And I bet you when Donald Trump became president and the ad team went out and they increased rates, on ads, I bet you they didn't get mad at Trump then. They got happy at it. They had something to talk about. We love our idols in this country. John F. Kennedy Jr., John F. Kennedy, all these people that are dead have been dead. And we're still like,
be careful what you ask for, because I think without Trump, CNN and some of these networks, they're not creative enough to produce content.
No.
They're some of the most uncreative people I know. So Trump gave them content 24/7, and content is really, valuable. So, but this has been a great discussion. What do you do this, once a week? How do you?
5 days a week. 5 days a week.
Oh, you do it 5 days a week. Wow.
Yeah.
That takes
content is king, and it sells. And I'm sick of politics, but talking about Donald Trump gets clicks, and I don't do that on purpose. I have a lot of other topics to talk about, music and everything else.
Sure.
I will say this, and then I'm going to mostly shut up after that. But you put me in the same room to do reporting with Jim Acosta, I will fuck him up. It's too easy, because when he's sitting there with his ego in his hand, I'll be outworking him, and I'll be so connected that I would absolutely outproduce that person with higher quality, because all those folks out there in DC, the Don Lemons, they all make money on their ego and where they talk. And I'd rather just get to work and give real people a chance to talk about real things.
Well, it's been wonderful. It's been just a great intellectual but practical discussion I think I've ever had on a podcast.
That's the goal.
Send me your email. I put out a blog. I'll send you my blog. In fact, I just put one out a couple of hours ago. If anybody wants the blog, you can.
Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes for everybody.
Just send me an email, Cliff, CLIFF, at CliffCo.com. That's CLIFFCO.com. So it's Cliff at CliffCo.com. And I'll send it off the blog mailing list.
That sounds great. Everybody can get that newsletter there for sure. Get Redneck Reverie, the Rationale for the Trump Phenomenon, visionary Southerner, written by a visionary Southerner named Cliff Oxford. You can see the link there on the show page. You can also see the link in the show notes. Cliff, fantastic conversation. And like you said, I always shoot for practical. I like to be the practical advocate instead of the devil advocate, and I think we nailed that today. And I can't wait to talk to you again. Let's do when the next book comes out. Let's do it again.
I would love to, Pete. Thanks for having me.
Okay, stand by for 1 second.